Hi everyone, hope you're having a great day so far. My name is Maren and welcome to Maren Makes It. Today we're gonna be making a super easy meal prep. I call it baked egg squares. You can kind of eat these on your own like an omelet, or they're perfect for putting in an egg sandwich. So if you're one of those people who's like, I don't like to meal prep because I don't want to eat the same thing every day for a week. Yeah, I get it, but this is something you can freeze super easily and it doesn't take up a lot of space in the freezer as well, so you have no excuse to not be watching this video and trying this out. The first step is actually preheat your oven to about 350 degrees. So you can use fresh veggies or frozen veggies or a combo of both. I'm gonna be doing a combo. I have this bag of broccoli left over still in the freezer, so I'm gonna be using that up. And then I'm gonna be using onion and carrots, which I still need to cut up. So the next step is peeling the carrots now. I'm not too concerned about how finely chopped these are gonna be. I kind of want bigger chunks. I would definitely say more like diced than minced. If you're using fresh vegetables, I'm not too concerned about cooking these ahead of time, just so you know. I would be concerned though with the frozen ones. So with the frozen ones, I am planning to microwave those ahead of time just to get them to room temperature and also just drain off any excess water. It seems to be kind of a bigger problem with frozen vegetables that we end up with some excess water. So this is just to show you guys the size of the pieces that I chopped. I would say it's somewhere between like a diced and a minced, in my opinion. You want the pieces to be big enough to taste, but not so big that it's just like, wow, this is a chunk of, you know, carrot and nothing else, or just giant bite of onion when you bite into this. For our broccoli, since it's gonna be coming from frozen, I'm gonna be putting it in the microwave now for a few minutes just to get it up to room temperature. Doesn't need to be steaming hot or anything, but I do want it to start at room temperature, which is the same as the other ingredients I'm using. Okay, so while the oven's preheating and I have that broccoli in the microwave, we're gonna get the eggs ready so that we can put it all together in a moment. So I'm gonna be using 8 eggs. Here we go. And 8. All right, so 8 eggs, and I'm gonna be using 1 tablespoon of water for every egg that I use. So 8 tablespoons, I have that ready right here. You can also use milk. I would normally use milk. I just don't have any milk right now, I realize. But just to add a little bit more liquid in there. This is very satisfying, by the way. I'm having a lot of fun. So I ended up splitting the eggs into 2 different containers because stirring them was really hard when it was all in one. It was kind of just spilling over the sides and making a mess. We're doing 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder into each of these. That helps keep the eggs light and kind of fluffy in the oven instead of them getting like dense and like soggy. I'm putting the baking powder through this little mini strainer, which is actually used for loose leaf tea. It's one of those little things. I am going to put it through there to avoid any clumps getting into the egg mixture here, because if you've ever tasted something with a clump of baking powder or baking soda in it, it is pretty nasty. So I'm gonna keep shaking this. That way it will come out kind of gradually as I'm mixing it in. We're also gonna be doing flour. So I'm using a 1/4 cup of flour between the two. So 1/8 a cup of flour in each of these. Okay, so so finally we have everything ready to go and we can put it together in our baking pan. I am using these, they're 8-inch square cake pans, but really you could use any kind of dish similar to this that you'd put a casserole or brownies or something like that in. It could be different dimensions as well, but something about this deep is kind of what we're looking for. So I'm gonna be using 2 of these. I'm gonna be spraying these pans with just some vegetable oil to make sure nothing sticks. It would be a shame to do all this work and then at the end find out your eggs have been baked into the pan. Get a good layer in there for sure. Now I'm going to be splitting up my veggies. So we'll start with the carrots and onions. So I'm just gonna put half in one and half in my other pan here. And yeah, this is really the fun part because this is where you get to do all of the customization. So if you wanted to do different vegetables or if you wanted to make this every week and you wanted to do something different in different weeks, then you totally can. You have a lot of freedom here. You know, if you don't like onion, don't do onion, you know. If you want to add meat because you eat meat, add meat. If you want to add cheese, but what you really have a lot of flexibility. You can also, you know, if you want to get fancy, you could put some hot sauce or some spices to make these pretty spicy. This is a lot of veggies. This is gonna be good. Just trying to spread things out somewhat evenly. As you can see, the pieces of carrot and onion that we chopped ended up being about the same size as these broccoli pieces, which is nice because everything cooks evenly when it's about the same size. With the broccoli too, if you're heating up from frozen, you're gonna want to make sure you drain out any water that's in there. Sometimes when we microwave things that were frozen, you'd get that kind of weird pool of water sitting at the bottom, especially with veggies. And that is what we want to drain out before we do this. Otherwise, you might end up with this being very runny on you. Mixing things up a little bit so that the vegetables are all coated in egg. But as you can see, that it's pretty much the perfect amount of egg so that if it rises a little bit, it's not gonna, you know, go over the sides or anything. This is also the step in the process where I would put my salt and pepper on. All right, so this is what my dish looks like up close before I put it in the oven. Now we're gonna put our dish in the oven. The first one's already in there. We're gonna check on it in about 20 minutes. So while our eggs are in the oven, I'm gonna get started on the cleanup. And as you can see behind me, there is quite a bit of cleanup. The good news is though that, you know, when you do cook in bigger batches on the weekend and prep things ahead of time, it means way less cleanup during the week. Because while I have a lot to clean up now, during the week, I'm really only taking things out of the fridge, putting them in the microwave, and then I just have to clean that one plate or dish that I use. So it really does save me a lot of time. All right, I just took these out of the oven. It ended up taking 42 minutes instead of 20 like I originally thought. The one on the right was on the bottom shelf, which is why it's a little bit more brown looking. It's really not burnt, it just looks a little bit browner compared to the one on the left because it was on the bottom rack, so it's probably getting a little bit more heat. These are looking really good. How I knew they were done is when the inside is not liquid anymore. When this part is solid, you can use a fork or a toothpick or a bamboo skewer or something to poke into there, kind of like you do with brownies or other things that you bake in the oven. All right, so I just want to show you what I do now to store these to keep them prepped and ready to go for whenever I want to eat them. So I will cut each of these into quarters and I will freeze them then as individual portions. And before I do this, I do let them cool. You don't want to do this right away. They tend to stick to the pan more when you do that. So over here I have just regular Ziploc bags and I just cut each of these into quarters. So now I'm gonna use a spatula to get these out. All right, so there you go. You just have a square right here and then that can go into a bag for the freezer. And now what I would do with this is I just pop it in the freezer. I'd be careful before it's fully frozen to not just pile up a bunch of stuff on top of it so it doesn't get quite as squished. But ultimately you will be able to, you know, pile them up on top of each other in the freezer. And then when I want to eat this, I just pull it out, put it in the microwave like this, and I'm ready to go, which is awesome. I took out of my freezer too, actually, from a past batch that I made, so you can see just how, you know, these look when they're frozen, and I just can pull one of these out, super easy, and I'm ready to go. So sometimes I eat these egg squares plain, but one of the ways I love to eat them is as a sandwich, and it just so happens to work out that these are the perfect size for a sandwich. I can put it on a piece of sandwich bread, and check this out. I have an instant egg sandwich ready to go. I can put it in my lunch. I can put it in my bag if I'm going for a hike. It's super quick once you've put in the time to prep it. So I decided I wanted to know exactly how much this recipe cost me to make because I'm very interested. So I poured over these 3 grocery receipts, which were from the last few weeks, to find all the ingredients that I use for this recipe. This is the spreadsheet I came up with based on the receipts from my groceries. So you can see the ingredients here. I left out the salt and pepper and baking powder because they calculated to be less than 1 cent, and it just didn't really make sense to include them since those are things most people have in the house anyway. So here is the price I paid for and the quantity in my recipe is over here. I converted those units to be in the units that I used to purchase, and then I did out the math. So this is the cost that each ingredient contributes to this recipe. The total cost for the recipe is right here in orange. So $2.23 for that whole meal prep for 8 servings. So that means that every serving calculates out to be just 28 cents. So next time somebody tells you you have to break the bank or eating healthy is so expensive, you can show them this recipe and say, no, it's not. All right, so this brings us to the end of the video for today. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button down below so I know to make more content in the future. If you end up trying this recipe, let me know. Let me know what ingredients you use to make your baked egg squares at home. If there's one takeaway that I want you to get from this video, it's that eating healthy doesn't have to be super expensive and doesn't have to be these super elaborate recipes that you see sometimes on Instagram that have like a million spices in them and have like a zillion steps, and you're like, wow, I don't even have time to prep that once a week, or I don't even know how to cook that, or I don't even have the materials to cook that. It really doesn't have to be that complicated. Thanks for watching Maren Makes It, and have a great day.